I would love for Bonjour Toowoomba to play a role in being having an impact, welcoming and including people into the Toowoomba community. So the good people of Toowoomba welcome, but also I think in turn the Toowoombaarians become better people as well.
You're listening to Who Is My Neighbour, a podcast by You Belong Australia. Each episode, you'll join with Sorgal and Warren to meet some of Australia's newest neighbours. You'll hear their stories, listen to their hopes and dreams, and discover the incredible courage and inspiration they bring to our communities and richly diverse Australian culture. You'll also learn from some more established Aussies too, and the joy they've found living and working alongside our refugee and migrant background neighbours.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Who Is My Neighbour. In today's episode, we're going to be introducing and chatting to Jennifer Rix, who is the CEO of Student Guild at USQ and the owner of Bonjour Toowoomba.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to hearing Jenny, particularly as the school that she runs in town teaches languages other than English.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to hear that different perspective on language learning from the ones that we've spoken to previously about learning English. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy her story.
Well, hi Jenny, thanks for joining us today on Who Is My Neighbour.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. We're really interested to hear a little bit more of your story, your experiences. Obviously, we're interested to hear about languages and cultures and those sort of things. So could you just tell us a little bit about your involvement with languages and cultures right now?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm wearing two hats. The first is I'm the CEO of the USQ Student Guild. We play a role in helping to support international students, for example, that are studying at University of Southern Queensland. And my second hat is that I've just recently purchased and am the owner of Bonjour Toowoomba, which translates to Hello Toowoomba.
And that's a language school here in Toowoomba, is that right?
Yes, yeah, it's a language school. We have around 18 plus different languages that we teach through our school. European, Asian and Middle Eastern languages.
Okay.
And we have students that age from 6 months all the way through to 70 plus.
Wow.
All very interested in learning more about different languages and cultures.
Yeah.
Jenny, you're the owner of Bonjour Toowoomba. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and what made you really interested in this business?
Well, I've always been a champion for welcoming and including people. My background is Australian born and bred. I actually come from quite a conservative little country town called Kingaroy, not far from here, about 2 hours north of here. And I never had the opportunity to learn about languages and cultures. And I still recall with great clarity going off to university for the very first time and living on campus and meeting people from other countries and suddenly having this awakening to, it was a huge realisation for me to realise that my perception of the world was actually quite narrow and there was so much more to learn. So that sort of, for me, started, a whole series of exploring, right through from taking some of my college roommates, back to Kingaroy and showing them the countryside, through to now at Bonjour, where it's just such a delight to meet people from all different parts of the world and learn from them. What I've learnt the most about my experience at Bonjour is that people from different parts of the world are so eager to share. And it's just been such a delight to try different foods, learn different cultures and learn about different parts of the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So talking about sharing languages or sharing cultures and food, and could you tell us a little bit about how or the activities that you run at Bonjour Toowoomba regarding sharing cultures, food, the way of life that those people from different backgrounds bring to Australia?
Yes, yeah. So we have a French immersion classes for children. So we have kids as young as 6 months, but usually from around 2 to 9 that will come in 2 days a week and only speak French from 8:30 through until 2:30. And it's amazing at, say, 3.5 how quickly, within 3 weeks, those kids are talking nearly fluent French. It is absolutely amazing. So from that through to we have group classes, we have private one-on-one classes. Kurdish Kurmanji, as you know, has been of interest in our community. Education professionals, medical professionals, health professionals, wanting to be able to converse with their clients and their students, and so they've proactively been reaching out and asking for different languages to be able to, have a welcome. And even if it's just as, they're not going to be fluent, but they just want to have that connection with the people that they're serving.
It's amazing. I'm sure you've experienced this, Sorgul, that just one or two words even in a language can, well, at least, it's a start, right?
Yeah, I feel it just... when it comes to doctors, nurses, or teachers, I guess it's a start point where you just make sure that the person you're dealing with is feeling comfortable and really welcome, that you're trying your best, including learning a few words of their language to share it with them.
Yeah. Jenni, most of the people that we've spoken to on this particular podcast are learning English. That's the language that they're learning. Now, you're not teaching English, you're teaching all the other languages. What intrigues me is what the motivation is for locals here in Toowoomba to be learning all these different languages. What would you say seems to motivate them?
Yeah, well, there's the professional sense that we've talked about with our migrant groups and wanting to interface with them.
Yeah.
There's also an element of, preparing for travel.
Okay.
So planning a European holiday or a Japanese holiday and wanting to learn about not just the language but also the culture before they go.
Okay.
So for us it's really important that our teachers are native speaking and come from those countries originally, because our students aren't just interested in the linguistics but they're also interested in learning about everything from how to the lifestyle and how the train system works, and where you absolutely must visit because it's beautiful. So the teachers have not just the language but also the cultural side of things. So we have retirees that are very interested in those sorts of travels. We also have a lot of 20-something. They've got on their plans in their life that they want to work overseas, and so they prepare for that. They learn Italian or Japanese or Korean.
Good on them. And
say, well, I'm going to go and travel around and work and travel. We also have another interesting group of sort of around young adults, teenagers, who are very much into pop culture. And anime and cartoons, and so they're really interested in Japanese and Korean, and they're very passionate about that.
I can imagine the K-pop and the J-pop and the things like that.
Yeah.
Well, and you also mentioned that you have the retirees and old people. A question that I'm often asked, talking about language learning, is, when's too old to start? Now, my answer is always it's never too old to start. Yes. But tell us a little bit about those older people who are starting a language. Is it, do they have some special ability, or what is it that...
No, I think it's actually I think that they have a love of learning,
Okay.
and so they want to keep their mind active.
Yeah.
In fact, some of them would say this is, staving off, this is actually keeping my memory intact and keeping my mind alert.
Yes.
So I will exercise it with language.
Yes.
And that I think the most success we have with that particular age group is in social settings. So, for example, we have a French group that come in on a Friday afternoon. I think it's around 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and they just have fun. And they laugh and they just have fun with it. It's not necessarily a serious study. It's more about the group that they're in and the socializing at the same time.
Yeah. This is what I was going to say, Warren, from my own experience teaching at Bonjour Toowoomba Teaching Heritage, is that the environment is it's more of having fun while learning a language. It's not very formal school way of teaching. It's more of having fun, having conversation, doing something that is really interesting while learning a language.
That's significant, I think, because so often with our refugee and migrant communities, everything is very high stakes. Like you have to pass this English test to be able to do this, and you have to do that to be able to get into university. And there's a lot of pressure involved, right? You would have experienced this yourself, I'm sure. A lot of pressure to pass that test to get on. And that's not a really good mental space to be trying to learn a language, in my view. I think if you can relax a little, and language is about connecting socially, isn't it? It's all about connecting. So certainly that's what I try to do with my friends from different language backgrounds. I try to actually, even if I'm teaching English, to refugees or former refugees and migrants, try and make it fun, because otherwise the brain, I think, shuts down and you just can't really learn. So it's interesting to hear that that's the approach that seems to be working for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, being able to have a combination of, private one-on-one lessons, group, as well as the social engagement really helps. On a every second Saturday and Thursday, we have a French cafe, and we invite students from all levels, so from beginner all the way through to expert. And you would think, how would that work? But it is, coming together in a social setting, everyone learns, and everyone has that fun and that connection.
So we can relax a little. I think those of us who are trying to connect with people who don't speak English so well, it's like, well, it's okay. You don't have to speak their language. They don't need to speak your language. If you're there to enjoy one another's company.
Yeah, interestingly, I don't speak a second language, so I'll admit that to your listeners. What I've found, though, is that because people from other cultures are so willing to share, they don't mind if you mess up, konnichiwa. The other day I was trying to describe a particular Japanese tradition, and I'm going to say it wrong again.
Okay.
It's a kamishiba, which is back in sort of the 1930s, was a precursor to television. So hawkers, if you like, would roll out a little theaterette and stand on the corners, and they would have like a cartoon style cards that they would pull out, a little bit like a shadow board, and they would tell stories to children, or the equivalent of the evening news on street corners.
Wow.
And so we're going to try and do that for the
fantastic.
Yeah, for the Toowoomba Languages and Culture Festival.
Okay.
We're going to have that. And I was saying the word, and I could see it spelt, but how I said it, and I was so embarrassed saying, we're going to have a kamishiba, and then, obviously they jumped in and corrected me straight away, and it still didn't sink in clearly, but, I think we can just, be accepting of.
They know what you're trying to say. Yes, it's like karaoke, which is a different pronunciation to the Japanese pronunciation. You said, another thing that I'm really interested to hear a little bit more about. You said before that encountering new languages and cultures sort of broadened your perspective. Now, you shared one of the things that you said that you'd learned, which is about this sharing. Is there anything else that, you think, now that I'm so grateful that I've met people from different languages and cultures because I've learnt this or I've seen this? How would you describe that?
Oh, I think, good humans or better humans have an understanding of each other.
Okay.
So I would love for Bonjour Toowoomba to play a role in being having an impact, welcoming and including people into the Toowoomba community. So the good people of Toowoomba welcome, but also I think in turn the Toowoombaarians become better people as well. Because just like I had that awakening and the blinkers came off, I think having that understanding and taking steps towards each other makes us better humans overall, and more diversity produces a load of better outcomes, whether that's social, whether that's economic, whether that's, business outcomes. It's just got, so many, it's like a ripple effect. So I think that the migrants and refugees that have joined us here in Toowoomba have taken such earth-shatteringly large steps to be here. And you've mentioned the pressure to learn and assimilate, and the language is just one very small barrier. It's how do you fill out forms? How do you look at all the options in the grocery store? Massive changes.
Yes.
And I would love for Toowoombaarians to just take one small step or a couple of small steps to be closer to the massive steps that our migrant and refugee communities have made.
Now, going back to talking about Bonjour Toowoomba and really the big image or the wide image that we share with the rest of Australia, what do you think Bonjour Toowoomba adds to Toowoomba itself? I mean, Toowoomba is already a multicultural city, but talking about the language that we teach at Bonjour Toowoomba and the cultural differences that we teach, we try to share at Bonjour Toowoomba as a Toowoomba. What do we add on the big image of Toowoomba?
Yeah, well, I'd love. I think Toowoomba is a welcoming city. It's welcome. It's a migrant and resettlement hub, and is attracting more and more of our refugees and migrants. I think Bonjour Toowoomba is kind of a melting pot. Because we do have the large number of languages that are taught at the school, it's kind of like I just feel like the fun and the excitement.
I also feel like when some Australians come to Bonjour Toowoomba and they start learning a new language, they experience the same things that the migrants and the new arrivals experience with the language, with different cultures. And so many of them ask this question, or they just wonder, wow, how are you doing this? We're really finding it challenging to try and learn a new language.
Yes.
So I think it's sort of, giving this idea that it's not easy to integrate into a new culture and a new country.
Yeah, they do. They definitely get that perspective that this is really difficult. Yeah. And I guess, in Australia, we're on an island. English is the first language. There's many Australians like me who never had the opportunity to learn second language. So they've never had, that challenge put in front of them. So it's
a little bit of a taste. We say, walking in somebody else's shoes to understand them well. That can be one way of doing it, can't it? Have a go. Try to learn a language.
Yes.
So maybe we just tell people who say that English is an easy language, come and try another language.
Try another one and see how it goes. Yeah. Well, Jenni, it's been fabulous, really, really fabulous. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us, particularly to share that passion that you have for helping people to see and sort of widen their view by introducing languages and cultures to the community. Fabulous work you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Jenni.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that conversation that we had with Jenni. That was fascinating, wasn't it, Sorgul?
Yep, Warren. Usually, as you've mentioned, that we talk to people whose English is not the first language, and we always talk about the difficulty and the challenges in learning a new language. But in today's episode, in our chat with Jenni, we learned a little bit about teaching a different language. I mean, Australian learning a new languages and how that have an impact on their life.
Yeah, I was genuinely surprised that so many different languages, that there were people here in Toowoomba who wanted to learn 18 different languages, plus sometimes even more, right?
Yeah.
I can think, maybe people would want to learn French. I can sort of understand that. That's a sort of an elite travel, that sort of stuff. And maybe some of the refugee languages like Kurdish Kurmanji, perhaps for business. But that many different languages, to have that many people wanting to learn those languages actually genuinely surprised me.
It is. I was surprised when I first heard about Bonjour Toowoomba and the languages that they teach. Then when I got involved and I started teaching English and then I'm going to start Arabic as well, it's really sometimes not only about the language, as Jenni mentioned, it's more about the culture itself, learning about people and how, their lifestyle, how their country is. So all of these things, as Jenni mentioned, is shared by the teachers who are teaching at Bonjour Toowoomba with their students. Yeah,
and look, some of the takeaways for me from Jenni's conversation, which I think will be encouragement to some of our listeners. Firstly, that doesn't matter how old you are, you can start a language. So never give up. It's never too late, even if it's just to stave off dementia. It's not a bad thing to do. Also about how she had spent a lot of her life on a farm, she told us earlier, out of Kingaroy, with no exposure whatsoever to different languages and cultures, and how it really broadened her perspective. And I think we're always wanting to learn and grow, and that's a fantastic thing as well. But the thing most, I think, that stuck in my mind that Jenni said to us, I'm going to admit to your listeners, that she's never learned her second language, and yet she spends her whole day engaging with people who speak different languages, learn different languages, and it's not an obstacle. And I think that's a real encouragement. Sometimes I feel that we can be a little bit afraid that I can't join that conversation. I can't go and see those people because they're speaking a language different to me and I won't be able to. But it seems Jenni's discovered the secret there is just go and have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what it really, as she mentioned, is about having fun while learning something new. Specifically about what she mentioned about the French workshop or the French workshop that they are doing every Wednesday and Saturday, I guess, and how they're trying to mix students from different levels of French just to have a chat. And it really doesn't matter if their level is similar or not. They're having fun and discovering the language.
Exactly. Here's the message to us all. Remember to have fun. Don't be shy. Have a go. And it'll make a difference. It's a win-win for everyone.
Yes, and it's going to change your perspective or the way you see the world.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for joining us for this episode, and we look forward to joining you next time on Who Is My Neighbour?
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Who Is My Neighbour? To learn more about the work of You Belong Australia, just head to youbelong.org.au and find out all the ways you can get involved and empower refugees to integrate and thrive. Lastly, would you help support this podcast simply by sharing it with others? You can also write a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or subscribe to us on YouTube. Yes, we are a video podcast as well. Well, thanks again for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Who is My Neighbour?